Agape love, the heart of every work of mercy. Agape is not merely a feeling, it is a radical choice to love with no thought of self, modeled after Christ's boundless self-emptying love. It is the engine of the Church's mission and the very breath behind each work of mercy. In both the corporal and spiritual acts, agape becomes incarnate, in hands that serve, in voices that speak truth with gentleness, in hearts that endure suffering for the good of others. To practice the works of mercy is to live out agape love, not as an abstract virtue, but as a living, embodied gift. This script explores each of the 14 traditional works of mercy, the 7 corporal and the 7 spiritual, and how agape transforms them from tasks into sacred missions of compassion. The corporal works of mercy, agape in the flesh. 1. Feeding the hungry. To give food to the hungry is not just an act of provision, it is a declaration of dignity. Agape sees hunger not as a statistic, but as the suffering of Christ in the face of a neighbor. Saint Hildegard of Bingen once said, "The soul is like a wind that moves all things." Feeding the hungry is letting the soul move the body toward action. It is preparing a meal not to impress, but to love. 2. Giving drink to the thirsty. Water, the simplest of gifts, becomes sacred when given with love. Agape offers the cup not just to quench thirst, but to offer refreshment of dignity. Think of Saint Josephine Bakhita, who knew the deprivation of the body and yet gave joyfully when she could. The gospel cry, "I was thirsty and you gave me drink," is fulfilled in every cup handed over with kindness. 3. Clothing the naked. To clothe the naked is to shield the vulnerable, to wrap the shivering body with the warmth of belonging. Agape looks not with judgment, but with tenderness. Saint Martin of Tours, upon seeing a beggar in rags, cut his military cloak in two and gave half. That night, he dreamed of Christ wearing it. Agape turns fabric into love. 4. Sheltering the homeless. Agape doesn't just build roofs, it builds refuge. It sees not just the need for shelter, but the longing to be welcomed. In the stories of Dorothy Day and the Catholic worker movement, agape created homes where judgment was absent and presence was abundant. Shelter is more than structure, it is a sacrament of hospitality. 5. Visiting the sick. Illness often isolates, but agape walks in, sits down, and stays. It does not flee discomfort. Saint Camillus de Lellis, patron of the sick and nurses, washed wounds and comforted bodies with reverence. To visit the sick is to say, you are still whole, still loved, still worthy of being seen. 6. Visiting the imprisoned. Prisons hold the body, but agape speaks to the soul. Visiting the imprisoned means bearing the light of mercy into places the world wants to forget. Saint Moses the Black, a former thief turned monk, knew both chains and freedom. Agape crosses bars and unlocks hearts. 7. Burying the dead. To bury the dead is to honor life, even in its stillness. Agape respects the image of God in every body, even after breath has left. Tobias from the Book of Tobit buried the dead despite persecution. This work of mercy teaches reverence, not only for the deceased, but for the grief of those left behind. Su, the spiritual works of mercy, agape of the soul. 1. Instructing the ignorant. Agape doesn't condescend, it illuminates. To teach is to lift others up to the truth with patience and respect. Saint Julie Billiart, who founded schools during the French Revolution, taught not only letters but hope. Instructing is not about superiority, it's about sharing the riches of what we've been given. 2. Counseling the doubtful. Doubt is not a sin, it is a threshold. Agape meets the doubtful without shame. It listens more than it speaks. Saint Ignatius of Loyola's spiritual exercises were born out of his own wrestling. To counsel with agape is to walk alongside, not push from behind. 3. Admonishing the sinner. This is not the work of condemnation, but of restoration. Agape corrects not with scorn, but with love that desires the other's flourishing. Saint John Bosco loved wayward boys into sainthood. To admonish with agape is to say, "You are made for more, and I will not stop believing in that." 4. Bearing wrongs patiently. This is perhaps the most hidden work, yet the most divine. Agape bears insult, not because it is weak, but because it is strong enough to absorb pain without returning it. Saint Rita of Cascia endured betrayal and cruelty with steadfast peace. Patience in the face of injustice becomes a silent revolution. 5. Forgiving offenses willingly. Agape does not keep score. Forgiveness with agape is not forgetting, it is choosing love over revenge. Saint Maria Goretti forgave her murderer with her dying breath. It is costly grace, poured out without demand for repayment. 6. Comforting the afflicted. Agape does not rush to fix, it sits and weeps. Saint Teresa of Avila said, "Let nothing disturb you." But she also knew how to hold the disturbed. Comfort comes in presence, not platitudes. This work is the gentle presence of Christ in suffering. 7. Praying for the living and the dead. Agape bridges time. Prayer is the eternal work of mercy, connecting heaven and earth, the seen and unseen. Saint Monica wept for her son Augustine, her prayers spanning decades. Agape believes in transformation even when we cannot see it. To live the works of mercy is to let agape love spill out of the heart and into the world. It is not reserved for saints. It is the call of all believers. The mother nursing a sick child, the teenager defending a bullied classmate, the priest praying unseen in the night, these are the quiet revolutions of agape. Mercy is not a checklist. It is a language. It is a way of seeing. It is Christ himself, present in disguise, in the hungry, the lonely, the imprisoned, the confused, the angry, the grieving. When we respond with agape, we do not merely serve, we become icons of the invisible God. Let every act of mercy begin with love, and let that love be agape, divine, enduring, and full of grace.